Hello, Aries. If you're listening to this right now, chances are you've just lost someone you thought would always stay in your life, and you're trying to understand why it had to end this way. But let me ask you something. What if that departure isn't an ending at all, but the very first door leading you back to yourself? Don't go anywhere, because in the next few minutes, you'll begin to see that this person didn't leave to hurt you. They left so you could be released from a space too small for the light you're carrying inside. And now, as you stand ready to step through that doorway, let me take you back to the very beginning, to the place where everything seemed to break apart, yet was actually the moment the universe began to speak. We'll start right at the instant they disappeared, and you'll realize it was never just a random goodbye. There was once someone who stepped into your life like sunlight after days of endless rain. They were present in the smallest details, in the stories you never got to finish, in the plans you held close to your Aries heart. You never needed them to be perfect. You just needed them to stay. And then on a day as ordinary as any other, they disappeared. No clear explanation, no anger, no goodbye, just absence. And that emptiness wasn't only in your daily life. It settled into all the things you never got to say, into the waiting in your eyes, into the messages you typed and then deleted. No one ever taught you how to face a quiet departure. People think Aries are strong, that Aries can handle anything. But the truth is, when that person vanished, it felt as if a part of you was drained away. You started asking yourself, did I do something wrong? You replayed every memory, every argument, every glance, every word, but the answer stayed silent, just like their disappearance. From the Buddhist view, a human life is an endless stream of causes and conditions, of meetings and karmic ties. When the bond is fulfilled, when the lesson is complete, the connection dissolves like morning mist before the sun. And sometimes that leaving is not your failure. It is your awakening. A quiet liberation your soul had been calling for, long before your mind could admit it, in those sleepless nights when you felt something was no longer right but still tried to hold on. No one enters your life without a reason, and no one leaves without leaving a lesson behind. They once brought laughter, light, hope, but when their purpose was complete, the universe did not hesitate. It lifted them out of your path to clear a new space, a space where you could walk forward without limits. It hurts to admit that some people are only a stop along the way, not the final destination. They come to help you grow, but that doesn't mean they are meant to travel with you forever. Sometimes, the very people we love the most are the ones who lead us away from ourselves. You once saw them as the center of your inner world, but in truth, they were only a mirror reflecting back what you needed to learn about love, about letting go, about compassion for yourself. And dear one, you were never abandoned. You were protected. Their absence is the presence of a deep blessing, even though it wears the disguise of pain. It is the universe whispering, you've gone far enough in this bond. Now it's time to return to yourself. The pain you feel is not because they were the last person. It's because you once believed they would be forever. But sometimes, what we need is not the person who stays, but the lesson that comes with their leaving. And in the moment you realize that, you are no longer the same version of yourself. You're stepping through a doorway where light begins to pour into the corners you thought had been forgotten. Because sometimes, absence is the clearest presence of something sacred. A door closing is not an ending. It is the subtle shift of the universe's energy, reminding you that you may be on the edge of a place where your light will no longer be hidden, where you no longer have to shrink yourself just to fit inside someone else's love. That place may already be waiting for you in what comes next, a place where you'll see at last how much of yourself you've been folding away just to keep someone who was never meant to walk your whole path with you. Not everyone sees the fire in you as something beautiful. Some people come into your life with sweet words, warm embraces, and eyes that look at you like you're the most extraordinary thing they've ever touched. You believe them, and you open your heart, like a child standing in a wide, open field, arms stretched out, not yet knowing where the storm will come from. But slowly, you begin to notice the little things, how they go quiet when you speak passionately about your dreams, how their eyes drift away when you shine too brightly in a crowded room, how they comfort you when you're hurting but disappear when you're strong. And so you begin to step back, just a little. That fire inside you, the thing that makes you feel most alive. You start turning it down to a safer setting. You speak less about your vision. You tuck away what makes you different. You begin to filter the light you let out, choosing what shines and what stays hidden. Also, they can feel more at ease in your presence. No one told you to do that. But the Aries heart is sometimes softer than you'd like to admit. You love by instinct. You love with loyalty. You love like a warrior willing to sacrifice parts of yourself to protect what you believe is worth keeping. You think, if I just quiet myself a bit, soften the edges, maybe they'll stay. And little by little, you start to shrink inside your own life, as if your existence has to be packaged into a size they can tolerate. But real love, true love, never asks that of you. It never asks you to dim your light. It never makes you feel like you're too much, too complicated, too intense, too wild for the world. Real love is where you're free to shine all of you, without fear of being burned out. What breaks the heart isn't rejection. It's the quiet betrayal of self, the slow surrender of who you are, just to hold on to a space that can no longer hold you. When you shrink yourself, you don't just lose freedom, you lose your voice. The one that used to be clear, bold, and brave enough to guide you through anything. They say Aries are reckless, but only you know. The boldest thing you ever did for love was to become small. So small, you couldn't even recognize yourself in the mirror. And the cruel twist is, even then, even after all that, they still walked away, not because you weren't gentle enough, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because you outgrew the space they were trying to keep you in. They needed a version of you they could contain. But you were born to blaze, so maybe their leaving wasn't a loss. Maybe it was the universe gently reminding you, you never had to shrink to be worthy of love, because no one who truly belongs in your life will ever be afraid of your light. That light isn't just for you. It's meant to lead others. And if someone feels threatened by that, maybe they were never meant to walk beside you in the first place. The moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself is the moment you step out of the shadows of compromise. And strangely enough, when you start walking like that, the world becomes wider, softer, and yes, brighter. You still carry the bruises, but now you know they are not wounds of failure. They are the markings of a soul that dared to love fully and found the courage to return to its truest self. And sometimes, in the quiet space where you begin shedding everything that no longer fits, you hear a sound you haven't heard in a long time. The sound of you coming back, not in a rush, not with noise, but with trust. Steady, grounded, sure, like footsteps walking you home, to the place where you are free to live, free to dream, free to shine, without asking anyone for permission. And with each step forward, when you think you've lost too much, you might just realize you're getting closer than ever to something sacred, the return to yourself. The journey ahead may still be long, the path still holding shadows unnamed, but now there's a quiet light inside you, and it's just bright enough to help you see. Sometimes the heaviest weight we carry is not what we're facing, it's the parts of ourselves we've left behind, trying to hold on to someone who was never meant to go the whole way with us. Not every goodbye comes in the form of pain. Some farewells arrive quietly, like a breeze in the night. No warning, no drama, but they leave a hollow space in your soul, one that's hard to name, let alone fill. And you, an Aries who once believed in your own strength, who stood firm through every storm, who loved fearlessly without apology, now find yourself strangely empty, all because of one person who walked out of your life. But if you look closer, you'll see something else. Their leaving wasn't an ending. It was a shift, subtle, sacred, and necessary. From a Buddhist lens, nothing appears or disappears without meaning. Every connection is karma unfolding, souls crossing paths to learn, to grow, and sometimes to let go. You may have thought you were left behind, but in truth, you were set free, freed from a bond that had begun, quietly, to drain the life out of you. That person who once felt like an anchor had become a weight. no longer vibrating with the frequency your soul is now reaching toward. Some people simply can't walk with you forever, not because they changed, not because you did, but because the journey of your two spirits had reached its final crossroad. One was meant to soar, the other needed stillness. And if you had kept holding on, there would only be exhaustion, delay, and heartbreak. The universe saw what you couldn't yet see. It heard the sighs you'd grown used to hiding. It felt the fatigue in every effort you made, just to hold together something that didn't want to be held. So when the time came, a divine intervention unfolded, not in fire or fury, but in a growing silence that no one dared to fill, in a final conversation that didn't feel final, but left a scar you'll never forget. Aries, you are strong, but true strength isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. You weren't rejected. You were redirected toward something more aligned, toward those who will see your worth without you having to dim your light, shrink your soul, or explain your fire. Their leaving wasn't meant to hurt you. It was meant to open a door to the kind of love where you don't have to apologize for being bold or passionate or whole. And if you take a breath, if you sit in the quiet, you'll see. None of this is meaningless. Everyone who leaves, leaves behind a mirror. Some arrive to teach you how to love, others to teach you compassion, and some, like this one, to teach you your limits and your worth. Not everyone who walks away is the villain. Sometimes they simply can't love you the way you deserve to be loved. And letting them go is the kindest, most compassionate act you can offer to both of you. You no longer need to carry the weight of a connection where you always have to explain who you are, where you are always the initiator, always the one shining, alone in a dark room. Now, as silence settles where once there were calls and laughter, listen closely. Don't rush to fill the space, because it's in that stillness that new seeds begin to grow. You may not see the full picture yet, but trust that every loss is rooted in love, not from people, but from the universe itself. A love that speaks without words, a love that moves always at the right time. And one day, you'll understand. Letting go wasn't about losing someone. It was about retrieving the part of yourself you've abandoned for too long, the light within you, waiting for your return. When you rise, lighter, wiser, you'll realize not every goodbye is a tragedy. Some are the most sacred form of protection you'll ever receive. And so, in this space of unnamed emotions, you begin to feel something new forming, a truth becoming clearer. That love, real love, should never make you feel small. And if someone once made you believe otherwise, then maybe you're being called into an entirely new journey. One where love doesn't ask you to shrink, but welcomes you home to the fullness of your light. Somewhere in the past, you sat in silence, rereading a half-hearted message. You searched for meaning in a vague reply. You waited for someone to text back, never knowing if they actually read your words or just scrolled past them. You got used to receiving so little, yet you kept thanking them as if it was too much. A late-night call, a sudden hug after days of silence, a passing "how are you?" that you held onto like treasure. Maybe you told yourself, that's enough, I'll take what I can get. But the truth is, it was never enough. Love is not a game where you fight for crumbs just to feel seen, to feel real, to feel worthy. True love doesn't make you remind someone of your value. It doesn't make you wait to be noticed. It doesn't ask you to shrink yourself into a manageable version just to keep someone around one more day. You Aries were born to burn bright. Your heart doesn't know how to love halfway. When you love, you give it all. And sometimes you've loved so deeply, you accepted a third, a fourth, even a tenth of what you deserve just to keep someone tethered to your life, even if by the thinnest thread. You've convinced yourself, less is better than nothing. Everyone has limits. I'm the stronger one, I can carry more. But then, one day you got tired, a kind of tired that had no words, a sadness without a name. You still smiled, still showed up, still laughed, but inside you were empty, like you had wandered too far from yourself and forgot the way back. Love should never make you feel lonely while lying next to someone. It shouldn't demand you prove you're worthy day after day, and it should never require endurance in a place of supposed tenderness. True love is where you're embraced fully, all your brilliance and even your mess. where you can say this is me and they don't walk away, they stay, they listen, they hold you not because you're perfect, but because you're real. You've grown used to loving without being fully loved back. But now, you're entering a new phase, one where you're being called to rest in love, not chase it. If you're hearing this and your heart sinks a little. If someone once made you feel like you were too much, too complicated, too difficult to love, please remember this. You were never the problem. The problem was trying to fit yourself into a mold that was never made for you. Give yourself permission to walk away from relationships that only offer you fragments, not because you're selfish, but because you've learned to respect yourself. And if you've ever been in that space, write it down, not for me, but for you. I deserve a love that is whole, because saying it out loud might just be the first light that guides you out of the darkness of almost. Maybe someone somewhere is listening just like you are now, and they're waiting for a gentle reminder that they too deserve more. And you, by sharing your courage, could become their light. An unhealthy relationship doesn't just break one person. It sends waves across many tired souls. But one person loving themselves rightly, like you, can begin the ripple of healing. You weren't someone who loved wrong. You were someone who once hoped too much for something that wasn't ready for you, but now you're learning to love again, starting with yourself. No rush, no pressure, just place your hand over your heart and remind yourself each day, I deserve to be loved fully with all my light and all my scars. And one day you'll feel it. Love doesn't come from what you lack, but from the abundance already blooming inside you. Maybe the next step isn't about finding someone to love you, but realizing you've been loved this whole time by the universe, by time, and by the very path that's bringing you closer to what was always meant for you. How long have you stayed silent when your heart wanted to scream? How long have you smiled at parties while feeling nothing but a vast emptiness inside? How long have you been adjusting every word, every gesture, just to keep someone else comfortable while losing yourself in the process? Sometimes we don't even realize we've been living halfway in our own lives. Sometimes the exhaustion doesn't come from work or from circumstances, but from playing a role our soul never agreed to, and then they left. At first, you felt hollow, like a piece of you had been suddenly ripped away. You spun in circles, caught in memories, in questions left unanswered. But strangely, something began to return. A deeper breath, a louder laugh, a subtle sense of relief you couldn't quite explain. You thought you'd fall apart, but you didn't. You felt lighter. You could breathe again. You started feeling yourself again. For the first time in a long time, you didn't have to ask for permission to simply be who you are. No need to change your tone. No need to bend your dreams. No need to dim your light just because someone else thought it was too bright. And then it hit you. You've been pretending for far too long, pretending to be strong, pretending to be okay, pretending you were being loved in the right way when deep down you knew what you were receiving wasn't even close to what you were giving. And when you stop pretending, you'll be shocked at how long you've abandoned yourself. You, the one who once took wild risks, just because of a gut feeling, the one who loved without calculating, lived with fire, dreamed without asking for permission, the one who dared to walk alone, who spoke the truth, who breathed like every day was your very first on earth. You were the flame, and then you started shrinking, lowering your voice, dreaming less just to fit into someone else's limits. Loss didn't break you. Loss brought you back to the part of yourself you left behind. When you stop trying to maintain something unhealthy, you create space for something healthier to enter, not instantly, but just enough for you to sense. You're finally on the right path, the path home, back to your wholeness. And if you're hearing this now and realizing that you too once abandoned yourself just to make someone stay, please know this, you're not alone. Thousands of hearts have done the same. And right now, they're all learning how to love themselves again, slowly, gently, without judgment. The world taught us how to hustle to be loved, but rarely taught us the art of returning to ourselves. The art of sitting down with our soul and saying, I've missed you, the real me. And in that moment, you stop feeling weak for losing someone. You start feeling strong for finally stopping the rejection of the truest part within you. It's like a door quietly opening after years of being shut. And light, not loud, not forceful, but just enough, seeps in. and you realize you've been in the dark for too long. And when that light touches your skin, you know you're not going back. You're moving forward, not carrying the weight, not wearing the mask that once suffocated you. Just you with a truthful heart and a fire that's slowly rising again. And the miracle is, when you begin living like that, life begins to respond. New people appear, new doors open, not because you fought for them, but because you've become clear in your truth. And if you pause now and listen to your heartbeat, you might hear something deeply familiar, like a soft bell ringing from far away, calling you back to a place where your wild, honest, radiant self has been waiting for you to arrive and take it all back. Not everyone who leaves your life brings darkness. Some people walk away, and it feels like they're clearing the path, clearing the limitations, clearing the doubts, clearing old expectations that no longer fit the person you've become. And in that empty space, where what once felt like support has fallen silent, you begin to hear something deeper, a voice calling from within, a place in you that you used to rush past, just to hold on to someone whose soul was no longer walking beside yours. Opportunities don't always arrive with loud bells or flashing signs. Sometimes they come in the quiet, right after a door slams shut. They come in the moment you stop texting someone who no longer replies. In the morning, you wake up and no longer hope. They'll walk back into your life. You think you've lost a person, but in truth, you've been given back the space to welcome something truly meant for you. Maybe the next person won't come with grand declarations or perfect timing. Maybe they'll come with a soft gaze, a moment of real listening, a space where you can be yourself without feeling judged. They won't try to fix you. They won't ask you to shrink, just to fit their world. They'll stand beside you, close enough to feel the warmth, but far enough for you to still breathe and be free. And then you'll understand real love doesn't make you anxious. It brings you peace. It doesn't make you feel like you have to do more to be loved. It helps you trust that who you are is already enough. But to meet that kind of love, to arrive at that place, you must stop looking back. You must stop rereading old messages. Stop wondering if they still think about you. You must accept that some people, some moments, some chapters have served their purpose on your journey. And the most beautiful part is this: when you truly let go, you don't just open the door for yourself, you open doors for the world. Because every time you walk away from a relationship that limited you, you're helping build a world where love is not based on fear, on conditions, on emotional bargaining, but on freedom, respect, and wholeness. A world where hearts are no longer broken by prolonged silence, by indifference disguised as busyness, by control masked as care. You're not just healing yourself, you're inspiring others, those who are still standing at the edge, unsure whether to hold on or let go. And sometimes, all it takes is seeing one person do the brave thing to believe they can too. On this journey back to light, you might meet someone who feels like fate, someone who makes you think, "This is it, the one I've been waiting for." But soon you'll realize they were not the destination, but the final test, a test to see if you truly believe in your own worth, if you're ready to walk away from what no longer aligns, if you can stand in your truth and receive what you actually deserve. And when you can answer that test, with your heart, with your actions, with a steady choice, that's when the real door opens. Not loud, not flashy, but real. It won't just be a new relationship. It will be a new version of you, a version no longer haunted by the question, "Am I worthy of love?" but instead filled with the calm knowing, "I already am." And maybe, just maybe, when you've stopped searching, that person will appear as if they've been waiting all along, not as a reward for your pain, but as the next right chapter in your becoming. Not everyone who leaves abandons you, and not everyone who stays loves you the right way. Sometimes, the quiet footsteps that walk away are the universe's gentle whisper. "That's enough now, you don't have to carry this anymore." You were never left behind. You were returned to your freedom, to your light, to the first deep breath of a life where you no longer have to hide. Your radiant truth, that person as important as they once were in your story, no longer vibrated at the frequency your soul is now expanding into. Your spirit began calling for more space, more truth, a place where you don't have to shrink just to fit in. And when that mismatch becomes undeniable, the universe doesn't wait. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It just moves because it knows if you stayed, you would slowly lose pieces of yourself bit by bit until one day you wouldn't recognize your own reflection. But here's the miracle. You didn't go back, even after those restless nights, even when you typed the message and deleted it, even when your chest tightened at the smallest memory of them. Still, you chose to keep walking, not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally started loving yourself the right way, and that is your greatest transformation. You no longer chase what makes you feel small. You no longer fold yourself into shapes that don't honor who you are. You no longer knock on doors that have clearly closed. Freedom doesn't always come wrapped in instant peace. Sometimes it arrives as a slow, quiet ache, the growing pain of a soul expanding. But still, you're learning to let go without blaming, to remember, without returning, to forgive, without needing an apology, and that is not weakness. That is a strength few ever reach. Maybe you once thought you were weak for loving too deeply, but the truth is your love and the courage it took to stop when it hurt is a spiritual power no one can take away from you. So if today feels quiet, if your heart still echoes with emptiness, if your mind still turns to a name from your past, please remember, silence always comes before the sacred arrives. This stillness isn't here to break you. It's here to prepare you for something kinder, deeper, more aligned with the person you're becoming. And one day, you'll no longer feel sorrow for what's gone because you'll be too busy fully living what has finally arrived. Glowing star, thank you for walking with me, feeling with me, healing with me. I hope you continue forward with a brave heart, a calm gaze, and a fire within you that, even if dimmed, will rise again. Namaste, Aries.